When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, and that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. As far as origin stories go, this one's pretty good. America is a protest nation that wrote itself into existence by articulating the grievances of a people and giving political legitimacy to an act of civil disobedience. Ever since this radical act and that revolutionary moment, dissent has been both an engine and a lifeblood of American democracy. From the Declaration of Independence to this very moment, this nation has been profoundly shaped by small acts of protest, mass mobilizations, and sustained social movements, often led by those on the outside of power and on the downside of privilege. The history of American democracy is a people's history where bold dreams have been forged through brave acts in the face of big challenges. This is one part of the story, but there are other parts too. It turns out that the founding, the revolution, as well as the evolution, was far more complicated. The birth and life of the nation has also been fueled by stealing indigenous lands and slaughtering indigenous peoples, by enslaving and segregating Black people, by subjugating women and workers, immigrants and queers, the disabled, and a stunningly diverse group of others. This is the American crime story, and I mean crime in a moral sense, because most of this shit was legal. Take Thomas Jefferson as one example, the first author of the Declaration of Independence, who disliked his colleagues' revisions, the anti-slavery slaveholder whose theory didn't match his practice, the plantation owner who was drowning in debt, the white supremacist who wrote, "All men are created equal," the rapist who wrote about life and liberty and safety and happiness. What does it mean to call him a revolutionary hero, a founding father, or a criminal? Of course, Jefferson was not alone. 10 of the first 12 US presidents were in the trade of other human beings. The Adams family, first John, then John Quincy, was the only exception to this long-standing rule. We hold these truths to be less convenient, but they too are part of the inheritance. One definition of revolution is a wholesale transformation of things, a radical break with the past. Another definition of revolution is more circular, a continual returning back to where we come from. But what if we mashed them up? This is, after all, a mixtape. What if we embraced both and rather than settling for either or? What if our return helped us to transform? This kind of revolution, of returning to the past to seek new truths, of revising our understanding of the past to bust old myths, of reckoning with the past to repair our world, is what I have in mind when I rethink what the spirit of 1776 could mean and become at this moment in history. And I also have in mind a vast we the people, black people, indigenous people, and people of color, workers and women, socialists and students, the enslaved and the incarcerated, communists and civil rights workers, queer and trans folks, immigrants and asylum seekers, the deported and differently abled, farmers and feminists, pacifists and people experiencing poverty, artists and activists. In other words, the rest of us. Not founders, necessarily, but equally fundamental. Those of us who have carried on, despite the fact that this nation was not originally of us, or by us, or for us. We, these people, hold this truth to be self-evident. The United States of America would have perished from the earth if not for the persistent faith and work of kindred revolutionaries who have struggled to make real the nation's ever-elusive founding promises of freedom and equality.